How come my company never asked me?
My idea of financial security.
Country Financial does. Your country representative can help protect what you have now and prepare for the future.
Yeah.
What's your idea of financial security?
Welcome back to Illinois Lawmakers' continuing coverage of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly. I'm Jak Tichenor, along with Rich Miller of CapitalFacts.com. Rich, last week when we were here, the Democrats in the House were passing a $38 billion budget, and now we're told that the Speaker doesn't have the votes to pass the tax increase that makes the whole thing work.
Well, they're not much different than their constituents if you think about it that way. If you take any kind of poll and you say, do you want a tax hike? The majority say no. If you say, do you want cuts in services and programs and schools and roads and bridges? The majority says no. So they're pretty much reflecting the electorate. And you're right, they had 60 votes for billions of dollars in spending that were funded by a tax hike. And yesterday they took a vote in caucus and they only had 34 votes for a tax hike.
Well, we thought the conventional wisdom was they were only a handful of votes away from reaching that magic number of 60, but 34?
Well,
what happened?
I don't think that's an accurate roll call. I think if you've been around a long time, you've seen a lot of roll calls when people start jumping off, everybody jumps off. So those 34 are probably the hardcore of the hardcore.
There was a lot of anger this week directed at Governor Quinn for not doing what lawmakers thought was a better job of selling this thing.
Yeah, you're right. You know, in California, the governor out there allowed a lot of budgets to be cut right to the marrow, and California voters ended up voting themselves a tax increase. This governor has not wanted to go that route, not even rhetorically. And so members are upset that he didn't lay out the doomsday scenario, a very real problematic scenario if this tax increase extension does not pass.
So what do we expect over the next few days? The Democrats start moving through the so-called the bare bones budget at the $31 billion level and show how much pain there would be in that?
Right, and none of those will pass. And so then you're left with what to do after that. And nobody's really certain what Speaker Madigan wants or will do, and so we're just left.
And you've got the ones,
as we always are at this time of the year, when he wants something, asking ourselves, what does he want?
We'll know when he lets you know. That's what it kind of comes
exactly.
down to. And at the moment, the Senate is basically in kind of a holding pattern out there, waiting on the House to see what they're doing.
Right, because the House doesn't have the votes for the tax increase, because the House hasn't been able to figure out what to do about the budget, it's left the Senate, as you say correctly, in a holding pattern.
You've reported this week that there are some behind-the-scenes moves afoot to try and put together the funding streams for a capital bill that might entice some people who are on the fence to vote for this thing.
Right, the capital bill could probably get some of the squishy lawmakers that really aren't ready to say they're for a tax hike to go ahead. There's been a lot of meetings in the governor's office with IDOT and other officials. There's a movement of some legislation yesterday that could help fund it. But right now, unless they do a tax hike, that's not going to happen. The capital bill would create some really much needed jobs in the state. So, we'll see what happens.
What are the key things to watch in the next couple of days here at the Capitol?
There's only one thing to watch, is what Mike Madigan does. I think he set up the governor. He let the governor come in, speak to his caucus, and then 2 days later, he holds this vote. And it showed that they actually went backwards by 11 votes from where they were before.
So all eyes are on the third floor at this point. Rich Miller, thanks very much. We appreciate it as always. Your insights are very valuable. Just ahead, we will talk with two of the Senate's top budget experts about what might happen next. The budget is on everyone's mind as the clock ticks down to May 31st here at the Illinois State Capitol. To discuss the budget, Democratic State Senate Appropriations One Committee Chairwoman Heather Steans of Chicago and Deputy Senate Republican Leader Matt Murphy of Palatine. He's the GOP spokesman on the Senate Appropriations One Committee. Well, last week when we were here, the House passed a budget of around $38 billion with only about $34 billion worth of revenue since they haven't acted on the tax increase extension. So where are we now? Where do we go from here? Senator?
Well, they also did not actually send those bills to the Senate. I think the Senate, my chamber, my caucus feels strongly that we don't want to pass budget bills based on a level of spending if we haven't actually enacted that level of spending. So I think the House is sort of going into Act 2, Act 3 of their who knows how many act play now, and they're going back and looking at creating some budgets now at a lower spending level. We'll see whether they pass those budgets or take some motions on extending the tax revenue. I think it's still playing out here.
Speaker Madigan, of course, needs 60 Democratic votes to pass the tax increase extension because the Republicans will not play that game. So far, he's way short of that goal, maybe even further away than we thought. He said yesterday that he only had 34 yes votes, Senator Murphy.
Well, Jack, I think there's a little bit of theater going on right now. The three Democrat leaders of the state have made it very clear, going back to March, that they want to make the temporary tax permanent. I believe the votes are there in the Senate. Governor Quinn has said he'll sign it. I think the Speaker, if he really wants to get it done, will get it done. I fully expect that they'll still get that done because it's a matter of base turnout. And so I think they'll find a way to get it done. And I think what we're being exposed to right now is a little late May Springfield theater.
At this point, though, the Speaker was thought to be only a handful of votes shy of the 60 votes needed. But to drop off down to 34, that's a pretty steep plunge, isn't it?
The Speaker controls a whole lot more than 34 votes in that chamber. I don't believe that number is real, and I think you'll see some changes between now and May 31st.
Yeah, we may very well see changes. What I'd say is they're really very challenging issues that we're really facing with, and they really are sort of fundamental decisions we need to make here. Do we want to keep revenues in place, or do we want to go through and making significant cuts to programs that people care about? You know, education, human services being some of the primary ones. And I think folks need to come to their own conclusions about that. People have their own districts, need to make a lot of hard choices on this.
And basically what's happening is kind of a time-honored tradition around here of showing the individual members just how the budget would play out in their districts so that they might change their minds at the end of the day?
That's certainly a possibility. You know, they went through and did pass the higher level spending budgets. They're now going back to committee starting today and developing budgets based, assuming no tax revenue. Maybe they'll see whether they can pass those budgets. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. That may come people to different conclusions around the revenue if they can't pass those budgets.
Is there any realistic chance, Senator Murphy, that Republicans will have some say in this budget-making process?
My sense is that, what the Republicans have said all along is keep the promise, keep the tax temporary, and, let's make the budget work within that substantial revenue. We also reject the premise that significant cuts need to occur in those core service areas because the math shows that they don't have to occur. So if the Democrats want to keep their promise, keep the tax temporary, try and grow jobs in this state again by letting the tax rate roll back down, Republicans are standing ready to work with them.
And I would suggest that we actually get a plan from the Republicans. They have not participated in the budget process for a number of years now. We'd welcome a plan that showed how they would like to allocate the resources according and letting the tax increase go away. We haven't seen that from the Republicans. I would also suggest, having been looking at this and developing budget around keeping these tax revenues in place, is that while we could cobble together a budget this year, it would be cobbling. There would be serious hits, and certainly you can't do that for the second year out when you lose the full year of tax revenues without having serious consequences for school districts and all sorts of other things. Right now in Illinois, 2/3 of our school districts are in deficit spending at the current level, let alone if we continue to have to reduce the proration levels and those sort of things going forward.
The serious hit has been taken by people trying to work in Illinois. We went from a state with an unemployment rate for much of the year before the tax increase that was better than the national average to an unemployment rate that's one of the highest in the country. That's got to change.
Are Senate Democrats disappointed that the governor didn't do a better job selling how important extending the tax increase would be and the seriousness of the cuts that would follow if it wasn't?
You know, I think he's out trying to make the case. I think that there's a lot going on with the gubernatorial election happening right now and what does and doesn't get media attention. One thing that I believe we've been doing a lot of the real structural changes we needed to do to really bring stability, financial stability to Illinois. Some of the big issues we needed to do were bring down after the recession, we had huge unfunded liabilities here. We brought down our overdue bills from $9 billion down to $5.5, which really means we've been generating surpluses each of these years. All of the new tax revenue that we have generated has really gone to paying for pensions that have grown from 6% of our general revenue fund budget to the current 23%. Now, you can't do these things, and we've made significant cuts in state agency appropriations. So I think we've been doing all the right structural change, and I think we're going to see fiscal stability here following that, assuming we keep the revenue in place.
If the tax increase isn't extended, can you still make the full pension payments on schedule?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can make, with the revenue being generated by taxpayers in Illinois right now, you can make the full pension payment, you can pay our bills, you do not have to gut core services. It's a myth.
With no plan in place that they show, we actually have to have a plan in place that shows making that work.
The Speaker's got kind of an interesting situation over here on this side of the building. He's got one of his members who's going on trial in Chicago on federal corruption charges next week, and he's ostensibly a yes vote, so he's going to have his work cut out for him, rounding up the magic 60 number.
That's always been the case. These are not easy decisions. No one ever likes to do revenue votes. That's the fact of the matter, and we know that the Republicans are not going to participate in this. So we're going to have to see how this works out. And we may be, as I say, they're working on the budget plans right now, assuming that we have no revenue extension of the tax limit.
Senator Murphy, if you had a crystal ball, how do you think this thing's going to play out?
I think the Speaker finds his 60 votes. The Democrats raise taxes like they promised they would this spring, and we continue on a path of record high spending, record high taxes, and unfortunately no relief for the people who live here on jobs.
Senator Steans?
I would say that we have seen recently, as I say, doing things like making significant cuts to headcount in Illinois. We've cut 4,000 people over the last 5 years. We're down to 49,000 employees from a high of over 72. That's taking jobs out of the economy. We've done things like making real changes to pension benefits. These things take a while to really take place. We're seeing it now starting to happen. We just had unemployment drop the most significant amount in a number of years down to our 5-year low, and I think things are actually finally starting to move in the right direction if we keep that revenue in place. Bond rating agencies will like that.
Switching gears, the Senate Executive Committee this week moved your resolution forward, putting Illinois back in the battle to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment.
That's right. We really do have this unfinished business in Illinois. We're one, when the ERA work was being done, 35 states ratified it. We needed 38. There's a 3-state strategy right now to try to get 3 more states to ratify. There's efforts going on in Florida, Virginia, as well as Illinois to do that. And should that happen then, there's also legislation at the federal level that would try to take off the deadline for needing to ratify. There's been precedents on these kinds of actions before, and I think I don't think anyone really doubts that we should have full equality for the genders.
Yeah, nobody does doubt we need full equality. This is really more of a political stunt than anything that's really ever going to affect the law. The window for this closed literally 32 years ago. Mike Madigan wasn't even the Speaker yet, to tell you how long ago this has been out. It's been over 4,000 days that the Senate Democrats have had control of the Senate, and yet this comes up now. I think what this is really about is trying to distract away from a record of 12 years of one-party rule in this state that has had disastrous outcomes for the people who live here. And they do not want people focusing on their record as they go into this election.
Is this, Senator Steans, is this a ploy to spank up the Democratic vote in the city of Chicago on the way to November?
I heard the same thing when we were fighting here for marriage equality just a short while ago, that this was a distraction from the overall fiscal issues that were really pressing in the state. Starting June 1st, we're now going to have people being able to get married because of what we did. Justice delayed is not justice denied, period. We've been seeing a lot of efforts nationally to roll back efforts that women have been fighting for to get real equality. This matters. They don't have the same judicial standing constitutionally as other classes of protection do. I think it's important, and we need to be moving forward.
Senator Steans, Senator Murphy, thank you for joining us on this week's Illinois Lawmakers. Always good to have you on the program. Up next on Illinois Lawmakers, we're going to take a look at an effort to raise the state's minimum wage and a host of education issues as well. Joining me now on Illinois Lawmakers to discuss raising the minimum wage, education, and a host of other issues still before the General Assembly this spring, Democratic Senator Mike Noland of Elgin and Republican State Representative Robert Pritchard of Hinckley. Good to have you both on the program.
Thank you.
The House this week, of course, voted 71-43 to send to the Senate Speaker Madigan's bill, which would put a referendum on the November ballot asking voters if the state should increase the state's minimum wage to $10 by January of 2015. I believe that's the wording. Gentlemen, your opinions on that? Senator Noland, we'll start with you.
Sure, I will certainly be supporting it. It will be good for my district, which is the Elgin-Schaumburg area along I-90 coming out of Chicago. It's something that is going to help strengthen our economy. It'll put more money in the pockets of working men and women and their families, and money will circulate in my communities of Elgin, Schaumburg, Streamwood, Hanover Park, East Dundee, and South Elgin as well. And these are working class communities that really could use a shot in the arm economically. It will be good for them, so I'll be supporting it.
Representative Pritchard, I understand you were in the 43, among the 43
Correct.
No votes on that. Your rationale?
Well, this is symptomatic of what we've done in Illinois to destroy our business climate. We try to micromanage business. We try to direct how they should operate, and as a result, we have high unemployment. I've looked at it's a business study. There's a small business projection formula that has been widely recognized that anticipates this move would cost us 46,000 jobs in Illinois over the next decade, and probably $32 billion, that's with a B, in lost productivity. So I think it has a huge negative impact. And there's other things we could do, like the earned income tax credit that we currently have at 10%, that we could raise to 20% like the governor said, and help those people at the lower end of the working spectrum with a little bit more income. It is also refundable, so it would really stimulate the economy as we're told the minimum wage would do. But I am very pessimistic about the effects of this minimum wage.
Senator, is this a job killer, as the representative is indicating?
Absolutely not. You know, over time, what we've seen with the minimum wage, anytime historically speaking, whether at the federal level or at the state level, jobs have held. There has not been a dip in employment that could ever be attributed to the increase in the minimum wage. I believe that any references to what impact this may have on jobs here in the state is probably anecdotal and less data-driven research that's probably providing this information. But the fact remains that, when we are spending more money, when there's more money circulating in the economy, it's good for business. It's good for especially small businesses, because people, at least in my communities, will be spending their money in those communities at small businesses.
It kind of mirrors the same debate on the minimum wage that's going on in Capitol Hill.
Correct. And they haven't passed it. But here again, Illinois is going to be an outlier. We're at the fourth highest minimum wage, I believe, in the country, much higher than all of our neighboring states. So again, we're making ourselves unattractive, uncompetitive when businesses are looking to expand in our state.
But we have the fifth largest economy in the nation. We have a very overall strong economy relative to our neighbors, for example.
But look at our unemployment. We're one of the highest in the nation.
Well, that's because we have we have the most people. We have far more people,
No,
and it's much
a
more
percent of
difficult
the
for us
population.
over time to actually adjust those numbers for those numbers to reflect a more steady incline with respect to employment or unemployment.
And of course, as this is taking place, of course, the McDonald's corporate board is meeting up in the Chicagoland area. And yesterday, over 100 people were arrested. They're protesting. They want a $15 minimum wage. They want the right. They want to unionize fast food workers.
Well, I think what this points out is a couple of things. Number one, a resurgence of the labor movement throughout the country. Not only do you see this with McDonald's workers, with fast food workers, but recently we've seen some court decisions related to Northwestern's football program, university college, collegiate level football program that seeks to, where the players there seek to organize. And there are other examples nationwide where we see whether they're lawyers or they're engineers or they're doctors are actually coming together to organize for fair wages and a fair return on their time and their investment in the work that they do.
And that may be appropriate in the private sector where they can make a profit and loss decision. But look at all the nonprofits. Look at our universities. In testimony this spring, they talked about millions of dollars that this bill would cost them in increased labor cost. Plus, then, when you look at the park districts and YMCAs as examples, they're not going to be able to afford to hire a lot of the kids who are the swimming guards and other programs for youth during the summer.
And there was another point that I wanted to make, and I think the representative's comments bear pointing this out, that there's been a concentration of wealth in a very small percentage of our overall population. The top 1% most rich people, wealthiest people in our country control upwards of 90% of the wealth in this country. So this hegemony of wealth in a relatively few individuals, whether they happen to be private citizens or they happen to be corporations, points out the inequities that exist here within our economy and how our people are responding.
Given the numbers of Democrats in the Senate, is this going to pass the Senate in your estimation?
The minimum wage, I believe so. Okay. I believe so. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some Republicans that are actually voting for it too.
I want to move on to school funding. You're both members of the House and Senate Elementary and Secondary Education Committees. School funding's in the crosshairs right now as we speak this week because there's that debate on whether or not the House and the Senate would follow suit in passing the increase, moving the temporary tax increase to a permanent basis. The governor's office this week said it's going to cost K through 12 schools on the order of $875 million if lawmakers don't extend that tax increase. What are the impacts in your respective districts?
Well, I think the impact would be obvious. It's going to hurt every school district across the state. But what is a more important question is, why are we talking about $800 million reduction? Let's set some priorities. Is education really the priority in our state? Let's look at some of the spending that we do in this state. There's an awful lot of padding in this budget that we had and investigated in the House. And there's lots of ways that we could cut back some of the assumptions that the majority party has made in looking at the budget.
Senator? Well, you noticed a similar pattern in our ties, that we're wearing today.
The
tartan caucus.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that I think we're largely in agreement on this. That we do need to take a closer look at some of the ways, the priorities that we have within education. True enough, if the revenue stream rolls back, everyone is going to be hurt. Not just the school districts, but all of our social services. We basically do three things. We talk about the budget, the overall budget, and what impact this is going to have. Here in the state of Illinois, and every state really, we do basically three things. We educate, we medicate, and we incarcerate, okay? If you do not educate, you will medicate. If you do not medicate, you will incarcerate. I don't think it's difficult for us to connect the dots in this regard. So you have to really decide how you're going to spend your money. And I think dollar for dollar, your better investment is of course on education. And I'll bet you that is something the representative and I both agree on.
When it comes to the higher education budget, Northern Illinois University is right next door to you. You're from Hinckley. It's just next door in DeKalb. Higher education has been told that they may face upwards of a 12.5% to 20% cut if the tax increase is not
Again, these are the governor's choice of numbers that he chooses. If you prioritized education, there wouldn't be that level. But clearly that's the number we were given in the House, around 12% reduction. And if you look at the last 20 years in higher education, we've been defunding our educational system. And we've got to change that trend, because the amount that the state has taken away from its support of community colleges and higher education has resulted in increased tuition for the student. And it's now becoming unaffordable for our students to get the kind of education they're going to need for successful careers.
Yeah, when you look at the fact that student loan debt has now exceeded credit card debt in this country, it's an incredible figure.
Well, and look at the monetary assistance program, the MAP grant that we've talked about. The governor wants more money. If you look back at 2003, we were able to give MAP grants to every qualifying student that covered their full tuition and fees. That was just, 13 years ago. And today we can't provide half of the students with what they need, and what we give them is only about half of what their costs are. So we've really defunded it, and I think it's time that we start reassessing our priorities.
Is it partly because universities can raise tuition, they've got grant overhead, they can go out and find money out there that other agencies can't?
Well, each one of these universities draws from a similar but yet different population. I mean, they all have different programs. University of Illinois has a very strong engineering program, has architectural program. Western law enforcement, for example, Southern Illinois, which you're familiar with, has a strong communications program. So what they have to offer is a little bit different. So therefore, their ability to provide funding is a little bit different.
It's an ongoing issue. We're going to be talking about it again. No doubt about that. Senator Noland, Representative Pritchard, thanks very much for your time on Illinois Lawmakers. Always appreciate that.
Our pleasure.
That's it for this week's edition of Illinois Lawmakers. We'll be back next week, the last week, we think, of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly. From all of us at Illinois Lawmakers, so long from Springfield.